It's Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. How are you today? Happy MLK Day, right? Emil Amok, Emil Guillermo. This is Emil Amok's takeout. A takeout on a special day. It's a national holiday. It's everyone's holiday. We're celebrating because it means something to all of it, not just African Americans, all of us. I'll get into that briefly, but welcome to our program. We're here Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific live, where and this is incidentally show number 224. 224, where we ask the question, what does an Asian American think? WDAAAT. What that? Yeah, well, what do we think? I mean, no one ever asks us. Have you noticed that? They'll do a poll and they'll say, oh, President Biden has a blah, blah, blah rating, and then or they'll do a survey and they'll say, the blacks think this, Hispanics think this, and sometimes they don't even include Asians, right? It's like, do they forget to ask us? Sometimes they do, but sometimes they just don't have enough of a sample size. So we're going to give them a big sample size in this thing that I call what do I call this? Oh, between 2 p.m. Pacific live Monday through Friday. If you're checking your watch, it's only 1:55. I'm giving you 5 extra minutes. The pre-show. This is the pre-show. Just like in football, they have pre-shows. This is the pre-show of what we call the micro talk show of the AAPI and the AAXs. Or as I like to say, the ALLs. All's the rest of us. You can relate. You can relate to WDAAAT. What does an Asian American think? And today we're thinking about a lot of stuff. We're thinking about the Asian flavor of MLK Day. Emil, is there an Asian? Yes, there is an Asian flavor. We're going to talk about voting rights, more about voting rights, more about the news. Shang-Chi. I finally saw. Does that make me a better Asian American now? Now that I've seen Shang-Chi and I've given my money, of course it was online. I mean, I gave my money, but I didn't give my body to the virus. Still fighting the virus. I mean, I don't have it. I'm like fighting it off, right? Like you're supposed to be. You should be at home fighting the virus, wearing your masks. Like I've got my mask right here. Got my ammo. Got 1 mask. Got 2 masks. This Israeli mask. Got to be good. This one, KN95. KN95. Double up. So I talk about Shang-Chi. And also, Asian American football fans are going crazy because, the 2 cities with the largest Asian American populations have teams in the playoffs. And then I guess you count the Raiders a little bit because they used to be in Oakland and LA and everyone loves them, sort of, but they lost. Anyway, forget the Raiders. They lost, but the Rams are playing tonight. The 49ers played yesterday. And I might say a darn entertaining, I didn't say well played, a darn entertaining game. We'll talk about that today too. But I want to get to, this is one of my prized possessions. I know if you're not watching us on YouTube or on Facebook Watch or Live or on Emil Guillermo Media or on Emil Guillermo on Facebook or on Twitter at Emil Amok, I'm holding up my my prized possession, the Ebenezer Baptist Church mug. This is the church, as it says here, where the dream began. Atlanta, Georgia. Ebenezer Baptist Church, MLK's church. This is the thing I kept. I mean, I've got the mug, but I went to the gift shop and they were selling MLK yo-yos, yellow yo-yos. I think it broke on me. I had it somewhere here in my closet, but I bring it up as I do every MLK Day because it's a great celebration. I remember my daughter was growing up. We used to have a chocolate cake for MLK's birthday. He would have been 93 today. So I greeted my daughter on the sent her a text saying Happy MLK Day. Gave her some money to buy a chocolate cake. Family tradition. But it's really our National Civil Rights Day, right? I mean, it's his birthday. He would have been 93. And I would have I thought maybe I'd take today off and just sort of like take in the celebration. But I couldn't. I had to speak with you because, they, in my columns, and go to my columns at ALDEF, aaldef.org/blog, or my columns on Inquirer.net, if you're Filipino and are part of the Philippine diaspora, the Philippine Inquirer, the Daily Inquirer. One is a news organization and one is a civil rights organization. My columns are in both and some other places. White Filipino Chronicle. I'm just saying, this is a special day. And I've always said that they kind of put the pressure on the Democrats when the organizers of MLK, the family, the King family, said there would be no celebration without legislation. And then it looks like now the celebration is going to be somewhat muted, but actually it's good. We're having a reflective celebration because the fact that this comes up and coincides with the fight for voting rights is more than just symbolic. It is a reminder that the fight continues. We need voting rights right now. At this time, when our democracy really is in danger, we need voting rights now. And we need the coincidence of MLK Day to happen to remind us that this is part of the dream. Don't stop dreaming. I mean, I actually got into a little mini argument with a friend who said, heck with this threat to democracy. There's no threat to democracy. Democracy is still going to be there. Yeah, for some people, maybe for the wealthy who can inoculate themselves if they're on the wrong side of those who are in power. But that's kind of the reality of our capitalist society. But he was ready to say there's no threat to democracy. And I said, what are you saying? There is a threat to democracy. Whenever there's one side out there trying to manipulate the vote and take the vote away, there is an attempt to not just disrupt democracy, but to end it. I don't want to sound too alarmist, but I would say if your vote is taken away, for you, democracy is ended. If you can't vote, if you can't go to the polls and expect your vote to be counted, I would say for you, democracy is ended, at least for that election, until we can fix that and do something to make sure you get your chance to vote. Your right to franchise is not permanently denied. But there are people out there. There's the Republican Party. Let's just call it what it is. They're out there doing all they can to put obstacles in the way of people voting. And that's happening now. And we need to be reminded of that. And MLK Day, regardless of whether or not we get the voting rights legislation today or this week, it's a reminder that we're still in the fight. We are still in the fight. And we honor the man who put it in our heads in the first place, right? Martin Luther King Jr. Bullets stopped him, but we continue. Bullet didn't kill the dream. The fight goes on. I wanted to talk about the Asian flavor of MLK Day because a lot of Asian immigrants are immigrants, I know, from the Philippines or from Asia, from China, post-2000, post-2010. And a lot of them especially if they come from privilege. I mean, not everyone is. I mean, there's a lot of wealthy people coming from Asia, including Filipinos, Asian, Chinese, people buying up properties and whatnot, people coming with advanced degrees. Some of them come here and they adopt conservative values, conservative politics, and they don't seem to relate to Dr. King. They don't seem to relate to the civil rights era or to civil rights issues. And I just want to take this time now, as we cross into the 2:00 hour, the official portion of Emil Muck's Takeout. What does an Asian American think? I just want to impress upon people of the Asian flavor of MLK Day. I mean, if you look and see what informs nonviolence, what informs the spiritual thrust, shall we say, of MLK. You got to go back to Asia and Mahatma Gandhi. And how many times do we see Martin Luther King and not think of Gandhi? How many times do we I don't know, how many times do we think of Ben Kingsley? Okay, it's not Ben Kingsley. Who was the actor? I mean it. When you think of MLK, you should be thinking of Gandhi. Now, a lot of people think of MLK, and because this came up in the news recently, the assassin of Bobby Kennedy, Sirhan was up for parole and was denied. And so we saw some images of RFK, and we think of Martin Luther King and RFK, and we think of Cesar Chavez. But let's not forget, the legacy of nonviolence goes back to Asia, goes back to Gandhi. And more recently goes back to the 80s in Asia once again. Corazon Aquino, people power in the Philippines, which defeated, in a nonviolent act, defeated the dictator Marcos. So you want to say, oh, I'm Asian, Martin Luther King, nice holiday, but, that's for the black people. No, it's for all of us. Disabuse your fellow Asian Americans who might come up to you and say, yeah, I'm glad we got the holiday. We got the day off. Hey, wait a minute. It's our day off. It's all of our day offs. MLK's vision has an Asian legacy. Let's not forget Mahatma Gandhi and what he did, the Indian Revolution. Let's not forget Corazon Aquino and the EDSA Revolution in Manila that ousted Marcos. And let's remember that going forward, together with Dr. King, all of us, we are a modern coalition. A modern coalition, universal rights, universal love, universal truths. This is the holiday. This is MLK Day. More than just one man's birthday. It's a celebration of a movement toward that universal truth, that universal love that we seek to create that perfect society. And how do we do that? We do that in a democracy by assuring there is voting rights. So, beforehand, last week, we all looked forward to this week because we thought maybe we get the obstacle of two selfish senders out of the way and we get a vote on voting rights. Didn't happen. Not yet. But, we have this artificial deadline of, the holiday. They were going to vote, but that was somewhat delayed because Brian Schatz, the senator from Hawaii, got COVID and was quarantining, so he couldn't come in and make an in-person vote. And they needed every vote to try to get, to try to end the filibuster so they can vote on the two voting rights bills. So it's going to happen sometime this week. And even if it's just symbolic, if it's just a symbolic vote, just remember, the bullet killed the man, but the bullet did not kill the dream. It goes on. The fight continues. It's our legacy that we shall overcome. Don't forget that. As I lift up my Ebenezer Baptist Church mug where the dream began, and remember Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., 93 today. Would have been 93. What he meant, what he means, and how he will continue to inspire us as we go for those two bills, the Voting Rights Act, the John Lewis Act that restores what the Supreme Court took away to assure that people of color don't get left out in the cold by states that want to change the election laws that impact people of color, so that we pass the law that makes Election Day a national holiday so that people get a chance to vote. So we get an election law that makes gerrymandering illegal. And so that after a census is taken and there's a redrawing of districts, we do it in a uniform way so that it's fair for all. The fight's not over. If a vote takes place this week or not, the fight for all those things isn't over. Remember that. So we had Kamala Harris kind of zooming in to the celebration. It was on television today. She gave a little address. Also, Biden gave an address. Kamala Harris, this is an Asian flavor of MLK Day. First African American, South Asian vice president of America talking on MLK Day. And of course, she'd make it political. Here's what she had to say today about voting rights.
In Georgia and across our nation.
Let's see. Do I get that?
In Georgia and across our nation, anti-voter laws are being passed that could make it more difficult for as many as 55 million Americans to vote. 55 million Americans. That is 1 out of 6 people in our country.
See, I call on the vice president to provide the facts. 1 out of 6 people in our country could be impacted by the kind of laws that are being put in there by mostly Republican legislatures in states. And that's what these voting rights bills in the Senate are trying to undo. But here's the dangerous thing. And Harris is reiterating what Biden said last week.
And the proponents of these laws are not only putting in place obstacles to the ballot box, they are also working to interfere with our elections, to get the outcomes they want, and to discredit those they do not. That is not how democracies work.
And that's significant because, here are the Republicans saying, oh, the vote was stolen. It wasn't. Oh, the elections were rigged. It wasn't. This is the Republicans' way of coming in and saying, let's rig elections. We can rig elections this way. We can pass these laws that make it harder to vote. And as the vice president said, we can get the outcomes we want by making sure that the right people vote and not everyone votes. That is the danger that occurs if we don't pass the voting rights legislation that is now before the Senate or will be before the Senate. That's the need for voting rights reform. Here's how Harris finished off her speech.
As Dr. King said, the only normalcy he would accept is the normalcy that recognizes the dignity and worth of all God's children. Today, we must not be complacent or complicit. We must not give up, and we must not give in. To truly honor the legacy of the man we celebrate today.
So there's Vice President Kamala Harris. We must not be complacent or complicit. So, and that's sort of the thing. Even if a vote is taken and they don't have the votes to pass voting rights, the beauty of it is that you will have people on record. And then you could say, did you vote for voting rights? Did you vote for voting rights? Or did you walk away and say it was okay for some people's votes to be stolen? And then we'll see how the Republicans feel when people understand what they're doing and they cut through and people are able to cut through the rhetoric and see exactly what the truth is. Because that's the truth. The election wasn't stolen last November or the last election. It wasn't stolen from former President Trump. That's the lie. Got to expose that lie. And in lieu of that, the Republicans are doing all they can to make sure that they can get the outcomes they want by controlling and manipulating our democracy. So that was Vice President Harris. Joe Biden, of course, let's hear a little bit about him. He talked about Dr. King as well.
Dr. King held a mirror up to America and forced us to answer the question, where do we stand? Whose side are we on?
See, I like that idea of holding up a mirror to America. I like the mirror because the mirror is always a good analogy or a good metaphor to figure out, well, what does America look like? Does it look like us? And it's also good to use to make us feel guilty about our actions. Oh, look at what we're doing. What are we doing here? Right? Hold up that mirror to America. Where do we stand? Whose side are we on? Last week's speech, Biden said, are you on Dr. King's side or are you on George Wallace's side? That was a no-brainer. And yet, some people hesitated. Martin Luther King or George Wallace, the white supremacist, racist, segregationist? Which side am I on? How can that be in 2022? But that's where it is, which is why today, in today's MLK address, once again, via video, he zoomed it in to Atlanta. I guess he was in Washington. But Biden said, hold up that mirror. Hold up that mirror.
We're in another moment right now where the mirror is being held up to America, being held up again. Will we stand up for an America where everyone is guaranteed the full protections and the full promise of this nation? Yes or no? I know where I stand. It's time for every elected official in America to make it clear where they stand.
And that is, as I said, the importance of having any kind of vote, even though you know you may not have the votes. If Manchin and Sinema, the two Democratic senators who were obstacles in the legislation because for whatever reason, it doesn't make sense, but they're there. But the idea is let's cast a vote that show the American people who was with them and who was trying to steal the vote from them. And then if it fails, we continue to fight, but at least we'll have a roster of politicians who are anti-democratic that we can show the American people. These are the enemies of democracy. That's powerful. So a lot of news this weekend. There was a woman, Michelle Go from California, who was pushed off the train tracks in New York, the subway, and killed. And a lot of people said, well, here's another Stop AAPI Hate thing. But in fact, it wasn't. It was really the act of a man off his meds, a homeless man. And isn't this kind of a pattern that we see a lot, especially in places like New York and in urban areas? I don't know what the answer is. New York City's new mayor, Eric Adams, acknowledged it and is trying to bring the city together. There was Grace Meng in a press conference over the weekend. But I think people should know that there are laws. There's one law called the Kendra Law, which specifically designed to make sure that when things happen like this, where people off their meds do these crazy, unforgivable things, that there's a way to deal with that. I'll talk more about this tomorrow, but if you were noticing in the news this weekend, there was a lot of activity on social media hubs about this, and it's sad. Michelle Go, all the reports about her are, it's just sad. She had her life ahead of her. She was from California, from nearby where I am, and she moved to New York, attended graduate school. This was her life. She lived on the Upper West Side, and she never saw it coming. She was pushed from behind. It's just, I don't know how you stop something like that from happening unless you go into the subway and you just sort of like are always, your antennae are up and you're just not, you're aware of who's behind you, who's in front of you. You put your back to the wall and you just, I don't know, it just seems like something has to happen at the city level, right? I'll talk more about this tomorrow, because if you go deep into this, not the first time someone's been pushed off the subway. Not the first time an Asian has been pushed off the subway for totally, well, it seems that mental health plays a big role in this. but also it coincides with periods of hate, like the China virus pandemic, and in the past, the aftermath of 9/11. It's just, how do you stop that? Unless you have a unified community effort dealing with homelessness, dealing with mental health, dealing with race problems. No easy answer. So I'll talk more about this tomorrow. I do want to mention the Tongans. Man, the Tongans had a week. Talk about, I mean, they have the largest volcanic eruption, but it's all underground. And you can't really appreciate it except maybe from the air. So you got to go to the internet and see all the aerial shots. It's just massive. The eruption of, I want to read it because I don't want to like mess up the name. The Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai. The Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai eruption. They call it largest in 30 years. Injected a huge cloud of ash and sulfur dioxide, or SO2, high into the atmosphere, more than 19 miles above sea level. And this is something we're to really appreciate it. You got to just look at all the pictures, the aerial photographs. I mean, the eruption, 400 million kilograms of SO2. SO2 being, where is that? Sulfur dioxide. And it says that you don't have to worry about how it can alter global climate, 400 million kilograms. But it said, look, they compared it to Mount Pinatubo in 1991 that released 15 to 20 teragrams. Teragrams. Now, I don't know my teragrams for kilograms, but 15 to 20 teragrams of SO2 high into the atmosphere sounds like a whole lot more than 400 million kilograms. 15 to 20 teragrams of SO2. And that, Mount Pinatubo, resulted in a 0.6 degree Celsius, 1 degree Fahrenheit drop in global temperature over the next 15 months, according to NASA. So all this is happening. Of course, it affected people on the coastal waters. If you lived on the coast, and my daughter was in, down in Southern California, she got a call. Be on the alert. People up in Washington State, British Columbia, everywhere. And fortunately, it wasn't as big a deal. It was like a higher than normal, but not threatening. The real threat is to people in Tonga, and this put the Tongans on the map. I mean, there are about 60,000 Tongans living in the United States. 60,000 of them. A lot of them play football. A lot of them are great athletes. But this is their moment. They had a moment during COVID where a lot of this is the PI, right? The PI of the AAPI. And it's so sad because, as they said, a lot of them were cut off from their families. They couldn't communicate. I think it's still kind of touch and go. I haven't seen the latest. But there was, the Olympic athletes who represent Tonga, who are in California. They're all around the country and the world, especially those who are members of the Tongan Winter Olympic team. And we have a couple of Tongan weightlifters in the Bay Area, where there are about 15,000 or so Tongans. Most of the Tongans live in Utah because the Tongans love the Mormons. I mean, this is just, for me, the science and it doesn't seem like the tragedy is as large as we feared. Although we'll know more as communication is restored between Tonga and their relatives around the world. But this actually has us paying attention and learning more about the Tongans, which I think is a good thing. I think one of my relatives married to see that you can get the Samoans, people from American Samoa, confused with the Tongans, and don't do that. Not unless they're your friends. But my heart goes out to the Tongans out there. But it was your weekend. It was your weekend to just be noticed in a big major way with the eruption of the Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai eruption. Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai. I like that. Anyway, so I hope if you're a Tongan listener, you got a Tongan friend, I hope they're doing all right. I noticed there were some GoFundMe things that people had set up. Some members of the Tongan Olympic team, I think, set up something. And, the guy who appeared with his, shirt off and was in the opening ceremonies a few Olympics ago. Apparently, he's started a fund on GoFundMe. So we had that, and then we have the synagogue, which is the hostage taking there, which ended in tragedy, but I mean, you just don't want to see anyone die, but it shows that this is an act of terror, and this is what it means, or what it feels like on our soil. And it just shows the hate that's around us. I know Colleyville because I lived in the Dallas Metroplex area, and I just you think that nothing like this can happen, but when it does, you're just astonished. And I'm just glad that they were able to take care of it. With the hostages, I believe all the hostages were safe except for the hostage taker. But it's just good that we have a moment like today to remember that the quest for love is a universal thing. There certainly are different ways to approach your protests. You don't have to go to that level of taking over, a synagogue and wreaking that kind of havoc. There are better ways to express your pain, your political anguish. Hate to see something like this happens. Two more things, and then we'll wrap up for today. I finally saw Shang-Chi. Does that make me a better Asian now? I finally saw Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. And of course I should have seen it because I'm a San Franciscan. And, the one California bus, I mean, the modern ones with, that snake around, have that funny little middle part. I mean, that was an exciting scene. That was the movie for me. Now, there's more movie than that, but that was an exciting part of the movie. Aquafina, great. God, Aquafina, I'm telling you, she's hot. Woman is hot. I mean, she's everywhere. Aquafina. Simu Liu, also good. Asian Canadian. And then, of course, Ben Kingsley. We were talking about Gandhi earlier. There was Ben Kingsley in the movie. But this was interesting because Destin Daniel Cretton, who is the director, he's from San Diego. He's Japanese, part Japanese. And the other screenwriter, Dave Callahan, he's part Chinese. So this was a breakthrough movie. When you're a breakthrough movie in this sort of genre, right? You're going to make a lot of money anyway. But the Asianness makes it a little extra. It's the 9th highest grossing film of 2021, grossing $432 million. That's a lot. That's a lot. And, here it is. If you saw Shang-Chi, and you know me, and you noticed that within the first 15 minutes of the film, there was a character in the movie, an ugly, monstrous cage fighter named Emil, and you didn't let me know. Oh, I feel so hurt. I would have promoted that movie. I would have said, "Hey, there's an Emil in it. He gets his butt kicked by a guy named Wong," which may be fitting. I don't know. But I saw that and I said, I wish I knew this. But see, I'm late to the game. I wouldn't go to the theater exactly, first. Although, look, I know you see it the first week, it makes a statement that this movie, is gonna like be gangbusters. But you also, whenever you're on the train, it shows the movie has legs. I saw it on Disney Plus because of the pandemic. Movie still grossed 432 million. And I think people know that after this, after Crazy Rich Asians, you can bankroll Asian American projects. Mass market, mass appeal, Asian American projects. Although I gather Emil, the monstrous cage fighter who got his butt kicked by a guy named Wong, was not Asian. So I don't feel that. I don't feel that bad. Because Wong later, someone says, "See, you got to bet Asian." So they bet on Wong. Anyway, Shang-Chi, I heartily recommend it. Catch that when they go to the fight club and they discover the first fighter who's going to fight that guy Wong. His name is Emil. His name is Emil. Shang-Chi. All right. So, all right. Aquafina. Why not Dasani? No, okay, all right. Aquafina. One last thing. 49ers. I said I was going to mention the 49ers because the playoffs are tonight. This is like one long football weekend, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and all the largest California cities with the largest Asian American population. So if you're an Asian American football fan, you've been plugged in. You watch the 49ers, you watch the Raiders, you're going to watch the Rams tonight. It's going to be a good game. I'm not sure I guess the Rams. I guess, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure who's going to win that one. But I was surprised by the 49ers. I've been a 49er fan almost all my life. But that game shouldn't have been as close as it was. That game should have been a blowout. That game should have been 49ers at least up by 3 touchdowns. I mean, if they played like they did the opening drive, and the opening drive was like, I almost had to cry. I said, my God, they're playing up the potential. Their first like 9, 10 plays scripted, 10 yards, 10 yards, 10 yards, touchdown. They were playing like a championship team. But, Jimmy Garoppolo is Jimmy Garoppolo. He is. I know I don't want to say that. He is the best, worst quarterback in the NFL. And what we got when he played the Super Bowl and lost to the Chiefs a few years back, that's him. He'll get you there, but he'll do the crazy thing that'll drive you wild, that will just negate everything he's done. So he made the Super Bowl into just bowl. You lost. And he's been hurt the last few seasons, but here he got you there, but you just don't know what you're going to get. I mean, at the last quarter, Garoppolo tried to give the game away. And when he should have iced it by going for that quarterback sneak, but he sent a man in motion and he didn't wait for the man in motion to set before hiking the ball. He got the penalty. They gave the ball back. And made it. If you're an Asian American 49er fan, if you didn't have a heart attack in the fourth quarter, I mean, you're lucky. It's because the 49ers should have easily coasted if everything worked the way, if Garoppolo hadn't overthrown passes, if the 49ers and Garoppolo hadn't made that error on that quarterback sneak. Anyway, so Jimmy Garoppolo, the best, worst quarterback around, but also the best, worst chance for the 49ers to win a Super Bowl this year. So hopefully his value will go up. They'll be able to trade him for a bunch of better players because there's a lot of teams that need quarterbacks right now. And Garoppolo is going to be good enough for some teams. And the 49ers already have their first round pick of this year, Trey Lance, ready to go next year. And maybe Trey Lance will be something. Not a whole lot of mention of Trey Lance now that Garoppolo's kind of ascended. But next week, we'll see what happens with the Packers. Meanwhile, I want to correct myself. I said Deebo Samuel went to Clemson, South Carolina. Palmetto State guy, not Clemson. And not with Dabo. Deebo was not with Dabo, but he was in South Carolina. I got the state right. So you 49er fans, forgive me. And all you NFL fans. All right, so that's it for today's show. MLK Day. We remember our legacy for the day. Really, it is about a universal truth and a universal love. And it is about continuing the fight. I know we didn't get voting rights legislation this week yet, but we just continue the fight. Continue the fight. The coincidence of the birthday and this new fight just means one thing. We can't forget our legacy. We shall overcome, right? All right. Follow us on Twitter at Emil Amok. Maybe you're watching right now on at Emil Amok. See more at amok.com. You can get, I usually put the replays and whatnot. I am teaching a course in finding your narrative, finding your life story. And if you'd like to take that course, it's via Zoom at stagebridge.org. Stage, STAGE, bridge, BRIDGE.org. Or go to amok.com. There's a link there that'll take you to StageBridge. Find out about the course. It starts this Wednesday. There's a charge. I don't get all of it, but StageBridge is a good nonprofit for a theatrical or an arts nonprofit for people engaged in their third act. So if the idea of trying to find your narrative is of interest to you for memoir purposes, for writing one-man shows, literary memoirs, literary selfies, go to amok.com or go to stagebridge.org. Hey, you can always email me at emil@amok.com. Like us and follow us. I got to say, like us and follow us on Facebook, emilguillermo.media. Maybe you're seeing this there. Or go to YouTube, Emil Guillermo, the YouTube channel. And if you're saying, Emil, you're going to go away now? Yeah. But look, you can go back and you can watch. This is show 224. This is Emil Amok 224. And it's not bad, but, you should check out Emil Amok 223. I mean, Emil Amok 223. I talked to Daniel Phil Gonzalez. Yeah, Daniel Phil Gonzalez. I talk all about all this, more of this kind of thing. 223 was good. 222 was a good show. 220 was a good show. All those shows. Just keep going back and have it play in the background. You don't have to say anything. You just have to listen. I mean, you can look at me if you want. You say, oh, it looks the same 10 minutes ago. And just enjoy the program. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your MLK day. An MLK toast to you. My Ebenezer Baptist Church mug, where the dream began. If you've made it this far, then you know that this is where we get meditative together. And I say, hey, come on. You belong. You're good. Stick with it. And as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. I almost forgot about that last week. And may you live with ease. Ease. Sort of like rhymes with grease. Something to make it easier. May you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Mahal Gita.